All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Cook Street Public Information Center. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to note. This meeting will be recorded, and the recording will be available for viewing on the municipality's website following the meeting. We will begin with the presentation, followed by an open question and answer period. We invite you to pose any questions that you may have within the Teams meeting chat window. So you should be able to find that chat window on your taskbar. It's a little comment speech bubble that you can click on and then type any questions. We also welcome you to ask any questions live during the question and answer period. We ask that you remain muted unless otherwise requested, or you're welcome to unmute yourself during the question and answer period as well to ask any questions out loud. If you have any questions or comments following this meeting, we ask that you submit them by September 3rd, 2021, and contact information will be provided at the end, or it can be found on the municipality's website at the same location where you signed up for this Public Information Center. So without further ado, we'll get started. My name is Rachel Walton, and I'm part of the RJ Burnside and Associates design team. I will now pass the presentation over to my colleague, Vic.
Hi, my name is Vic Bodenau, and I'm a municipal engineer with RJ Burnside in Collingwood. I'd like to thank the municipality for giving us the opportunity to complete the detailed design for Cook Street, and also to present the project today and provide us with a platform to solicit comments and suggestions. I'd also like to welcome members of the public and Councillor Greenfield and Mayor Klumpus for attending this live session. Chris, if you could please identify yourself. Tori?
I'll jump in. It looks like Chris is
muted. Okay.
Hi, I think everyone on here knows who I am, but I'm Tori Perry-Maywood, the Director of Infrastructure Services. And then we also have Chris Collier, the Manager of Environmental Services. Chris is the project manager with the municipality on this project, and I've been helping oversee a part of the design as well with the RJ Burnside team.
So here's our presentation agenda. On the site map, we will show the specific locations along Cook Street of the full infrastructure renewal project, as well as 5 additional sites that require isolated water main repairs. The key milestones: we are currently at the detailed design stage, but how did we get here? What happens next in the design process? And ultimately, when do we break ground for construction? All these questions will be answered. Description of the works. We will describe the state of the infrastructure conditions in some detail as they exist today. The proposed design. Here we will highlight our improvements to the infrastructure. Construction staging. How do we plan to get all the work done while managing access to abutting properties and within the neighborhood, and emergency services as well? Our next steps. We will lay out the path and timelines for completing the job. Open discussion. Following the presentation, we'll be happy to address any questions you may have about the project. Municipal staff will also be available to assist. Now, I'm not sure if Chris is muted.
Yep, I'll go, Vic.
Great.
So the municipality of Meaford has identified 8 intersections along the Cook Street corridor between William Street and Trowbridge Street that require significant infrastructure upgrades. The intersections identified will include a valve replacements, upsizing of the existing 100 millimeter water main to a 200 millimeter water main, installation of additional 400 millimeter valves along the trunk main, along with reconfiguration of existing piping to allow for easier operation and water distribution flows. The section located between Lombard and Collingwood Streets will be a full urbanization, including water, wastewater, stormwater, curb and gutter, and sidewalk replacement. The overall replacement will ensure potable water is provided to residents for years to come. Thanks. That's a quick overview.
Thanks, Chris. So Burnside completed the preliminary design for Cook Street in 2019, which is an important stage in the planning process. As part of that assignment, a number of activities were carried out to obtain and collect existing information. At that time, a notice was issued by municipal staff to the affected properties, advising that the various fieldworks would take place. The engineering survey was completed by taking measurements with specialized equipment, which is used to prepare a plan that includes existing features along the street, such as sidewalks, utility poles, and property lines. A geotechnical investigation was required to identify the existing soil conditions. The information is valuable for both designers and contractors. A review was completed by any available studies, reports, and existing engineering drawings. A tree inventory was completed by an arborist, and some trees have been identified to be in poor to fair condition within the proximity of the work. These trees will be reassessed in advance of construction starting. In 2021, we started the detailed design, and part of that, we carried out a subsurface utility engineering investigation, which involves an in-depth review of buried and above ground utilities. So as designers, we can identify the conflicts. This also helps us be proactive to any utility relocation work and to help mitigate any known risks during construction. 180 Cook Street, the long-term care facility by People Care. Burnside has been working closely with the designers of the adjacent development to ensure any of their servicing requirements off Cook Street are incorporated in our design. In completing the final stages of the detailed design and the contract package, the design team will ensure that any feedback from the public, approval agencies, utilities, and municipal staff is reviewed and considered and incorporated where possible and where practical. The municipality has identified a desire to tender the project in early 2022 with a schedule to construct during the spring-summer. The project status will be confirmed as part of Council's 2022 budget review process.
We will now discuss the existing infrastructure along Cook Street from Collingwood Street west to Lombard Street, which covers approximately 250 meters of Cook Street.
Thanks, Rachel. The existing sanitary sewer was constructed in 1977 as in fair condition. There are no documented concerns by the municipality with respect to sewer capacity or backup issues with either the main sewer or house connections. However, due to the age and fragile nature of the pipe material when exposed to construction activities, there would be a risk of potential damage to the sewer and services from undermining and or compaction activities. 8 of the homes are serviced off Cook Street, 2 off Parker Street West, and 1 property off Lombard Street. On the west side of the street, the church is connected to the sanitary sewer on Collingwood Street West. The servicing fronting Cook Street will be renewed with this project. We will now show you a sample of available CCTV video footage of the existing sanitary sewer. This first clip shows a house service connected to the mainline sewer. The next shows offset joints and buildup called calcite. The buildup is caused primarily by infiltration of water into the sewer pipes through the joints and cracks in the pipe. And finally, a closer example of an offset joint, likely a result of poor installation methods.
We will now describe the existing water main and water servicing along Cook Street.
There are two existing water mains on Cook Street. A large diameter water main called the transmission main is designed to move large volumes of water from the supplying source, such as the treatment plant. And connected to it is a smaller water main called the local water main, which distributes water to the homes. The local water main is old and undersized for the area. The large water main on Cook Street is in good condition and properly sized. However, there are some operational issues and repairs required at select locations to improve isolation activities for operations staff. The water main needs to be repaired. This will help in routine maintenance, construction, and emergency works.
There is an existing storm sewer along Cook Street. During our investigation, we determined that the existing storm sewer has some operational issues and is undersized for the Cook Street catchment area. So as such, we will be replacing the existing storm sewer with a larger diameter storm sewer during construction. This will generally be in the same location as the existing storm sewer. We are also taking the construction opportunity to install more catch basins along the road. This will capture the stormwater quicker and will help reduce nuisance ponding during storm events.
The existing road is a local urban cross-section with curb and gutter, and there are underlying deficiencies with pavement structure evidenced by the various settlements, patches, failures, and cracking in the roadway. The existing bus laneway adjacent to 186 Cook Street, which is on the west side of the street, is partly located within the municipal right-of-way and will be removed as part of the redevelopment plans for 186 Cook Street. On-street parking is permitted on both sides of the street with parking restrictions bylawed on the east side of the street only. The parking restrictions on the east side were implemented when the school was open and do not practically apply since it closed in 2016. The road is actually not practically wide enough to accommodate 2 through lanes and parking on both sides as currently exists. Sidewalks do not meet all AODA requirements for accessibility. AODA stands for the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act and was created by the Ontario government with the goal of removing barriers for activities and opportunities for disabled individuals. Sidewalks are currently located along the west side of the street, but on the east side, sidewalks are only located between Collingwood Street West and Parker Street West. The existing streetlight poles are upgraded with LED fixtures. So the proposed design. The road has been designed to match the existing pavement width with no opportunity for widening without negatively impacting driveways, trees, and utilities. The new design includes a 1.5 meter AODA compliant sidewalk to be constructed along the west side of the street only, and it provides a continuous link to the existing sidewalks along Cook Street, north of Lombard Street and south of Collingwood Street West. The existing sidewalk along the east side of the street between Collingwood Street West and Parker Street West will not be replaced. Extending the sidewalk to the north from Parker Street West to Lombard Street was reviewed by the design team and municipal staff. However, adding a sidewalk in this location would reduce the length of driveways and impact parking opportunities for the residents. As well, it would conflict with tree routes. The bus laneway will be removed by the developer of 186 Cook Street as part of the redevelopment plans. Hydro utility conflicts have been identified and relocations will be coordinated prior to construction. Placement of the surface layer of asphalt will be deferred for 1 year, which is a typical practice to allow for construction-related settlements to occur. The existing large water main in this section of Cook Street. So that's the light blue line that Rachel's showing on the plan. This is the transmission main, and it will not be replaced, but repairs will be completed at the Collingwood Street West and Lombard Street West intersections to improve operational activities. So next, The dark blue line on the plan is the proposed local water main, new location. The existing local water main servicing the homes will be upsized to satisfy existing and future demands, as Chris had noted earlier. The new water main will be relocated to the West Boulevard in order to accommodate space to install the new, larger storm sewer along the east side of the road. The new alignment also provides sufficient clearance to protect the existing large water main from being undermined during installation. A temporary water supply service will not be required to service residential properties during construction, since the new water main will be sufficiently located away from the existing local water main, which can remain operational until the new one is installed. Now, the orange line represents our sanitary sewer, and the sanitary sewer on Cook is sized appropriately for existing and future conditions. The design considers additional capacity to future servicing of 186 Cook Street redevelopment. Sanitary service connections to residential properties will be replaced to property line and realigned where possible to mitigate tree or root disruption. The new larger storm sewer will be located along the east side of the street, with a majority of the surface water outletting to Collingwood Street West. As well, a short section of the existing sewer will be renewed at Lombard Street.
Vic will now discuss the water main upgrades at the 5 locations along Cook Street.
The existing large water main along Cook Street is sized appropriately, but some of its components have reached their service life expectancy and now do not allow for reliable water main isolation by operations staff during routine maintenance, construction, emergencies. The upgrades will be completed at the following locations along Cook Street, as Chris had mentioned earlier, including William Street, Albert Street, Nelson Street, Trowbridge Street West, and at mid-block, between Albert and William Streets. The newer water main on Thompson Street will be utilized to divert existing flows, while the large water main on Cook Street is being isolated for the repair work. Next slide, please.
Okay, Vic will now get into discussing the proposed design concept for Cook Street.
So our proposed road cross section for Cook Street between Collingwood Street West and Lombard Street will consist of the following features: new concrete curb and gutter, new concrete sidewalk along the west side of the street, including tactile walking surface indicator plates at intersection ramps. These plates are an AOD requirement intended to be detectable underfoot and used to alert people with low or no vision of potential hazards, such as traffic. Wide sodded boulevards. The road is too narrow to properly accommodate parking on both sides of the street. To correct this condition, the parking bylaw could be amended to restrict parking along the east side of the street and only permit parking along the west side. The west side offers more available space for vehicles to park compared to the east side, where space is limited due to the greater number of driveway approaches. The parking lane and spaces could be delineated with pavement markings. By doing this, the road will appear narrower and encourage lower traffic speeds, and introduce a permanent traffic calming feature. Burnside has also incorporated an accessible parking space in the design. The proposed pavement marking plan can be tested by installing the paint lines on the base asphalt and monitored for effectiveness over a year. Then prior to placing the surface layer of asphalt, a decision can be made as to whether the painted spaces should be maintained as a permanent feature. Next slide, please.
Okay, we will now discuss the construction staging.
So we expect the construction to take approximately 4 months to complete during the spring, summertime 2022. The suggested sequencing plan for construction operations is as follows. If possible and practical, relocation of utilities would be coordinated before the reconstruction starts. First would be the installation of the new local water main and transferring of new water services from the homes before abandoning the existing water main, installation of the new sanitary sewer and transfer of new sanitary laterals, repairs to the existing 400 millimeter large water main, installation of new storm sewer and catch basins, road excavation and placement of new granular material. That would be followed by the installation of the new curb and gutter and sidewalk. Final grading on the road, and then we pave. Driveway and boulevard restorations will follow, and then finally the pavement markings and signage would be installed. The road will be closed to through traffic. Residents living within the construction zone will be required to park on adjacent streets while work is taking place. At the end of each working day, the road will be restored to provide local access for residents. Emergency access to the properties will be coordinated by the contractor and will be available at all times. Staging during the large water main repairs. So it is expected that the intersections will be closed while the work is taking place to ensure both safety of the workers and the public. Only one intersection location will be permitted to be closed at any one time. The contractor will be required to update the emergency services of any work that may compromise safe and clear access at or around each location and provide detouring plans. At the end of each working day, the intersections and access to properties will be restored. Next slide, please.
So the pictures on the slide show a visual of what you can expect to see during the reconstruction. The project will begin with the sewer and water main installation. As you can see from the photos, the equipment needed to excavate the trenches is quite large, and the infrastructure needs a fairly wide trench for installation. This emphasizes the importance of closing the entire road for construction for the safety of the residents and the construction workers. Following the underground works, the curb and gutter will be placed. The photo on the slide shows the curb machine, which attaches to a string line to pour the concrete, curb and gutter at the correct grade. Following the curb and gutter, the sidewalk will be poured. The picture on the slide here shows the placement of the concrete sidewalks using forms and leveling techniques. The road will then be paved following the sidewalks. Again, there are many large pieces of equipment necessary to place the asphalt, which take up the majority of the roadway, further emphasizing the importance of closing the entire road. The base course asphalt will be placed in 2022, and the surface course asphalt will be placed the following year in 2023. So as Vic mentioned before, this is done to allow for any construction-related settlements to occur and be mitigated by the surface course asphalt placement the following year. You will be able to use and drive on the roadway during this 1 year period with just the base course asphalt placed. The final construction step in 2022 is restoration of the boulevards and the driveways.
So what are our next steps? Well, first we need to incorporate the comments that we will receive from this following this presentation, but also those that we will receive from municipal staff, utilities, and any approval agencies. And some of those agencies include the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and that would be for the sanitary and storm sewers and the water main. We also are applying for approval with the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority for the storm sewer work. Following that, what we hope to have completed for the fall is the final design drawings, our costing, final costing, and the contract package, and obviously to secure approvals. Now, the approvals need to be secured prior to the work starting. With a schedule by end of 2021, we'll be in satisfactory condition to have this tender released for construction early in 2022. Now, the tendering period and award of the project, as I said, would be early next year, so January, February. And that is typically the best time to be tendering, as there are a lot of contractors looking to get their years started. So the competition for work is quite aggressive. Utilities will be relocated prior to construction if possible, and that again will be coordinated through our Burnside office and each utility company. The construction start right now, we're anticipating a May start and likely run into September. It's obviously it's weather dependent, so working in the summer is always a better option as the ground is drier and more dependable weather during that period of time. And finally, as mentioned a few times already, the top layer of asphalt will be placed the following year. And at that time, we can also make a decision on whether the pavement markings will remain a permanent stay. I think that completes our presentation. We'd like to open the floor now to any questions or discussion items. And if you're not available to attend this meeting, we welcome any comments via email to the contact people noted on the slide, and hope that we can help mitigate any concerns that you might have with what we're proposing. Thank you for your time.
Yes, Harley, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, yeah, can you hear me? Am I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. Very very interesting, very major project in our urban area. I do actually have 3 questions, but I'll start off with one, if I may. The street being closed to through traffic. I'm just wondering. There was some mention of residents would have to find other parking places other than on their own property. Did I get that correct? Can they, I guess basically, are they going to be able to get home in the evening and away in the morning from the residence, or is even that going to be in jeopardy when the main construction starts to take place?
Okay, thank you for the question. I'll answer that. Typically, we require that the contractor notify all residents prior to closure of any road in the morning. So that would be first thing. If there's a portion of the street that will be closed, then those particular residents that are living across from that work would be advised that there may be a closure of the road for a period of time. And if they had plans to leave, then they would need to move their vehicles somewhere in the area. And so we do encourage them to park on side streets, but still abide by the parking bylaws. But and by end of day, the contractor will be required to restore the road so it is accessible, and typically for local residents. Now, there will be people that need to get into their homes during the day. It could be with groceries, it could be for appointments, Operation Lift. All those things are a day-to-day reality for many residents. So we do ask that our contractor and our inspector coordinate all of these appointments as much as they can to help alleviate any disruption through the process. So it's not going to be as just simple as close the road, you can't come to your house. We will work with the residents individually, especially if some require assistance, and try to ensure that the work gets done, but also the residents their impact is minimized through construction. So that's the best I can answer it right now. There are some operations during the construction that just clearly we can't have people driving near it. It's just that the excavations are too deep. and unsafe. And I think it's important also to note that if sidewalks are available, they typically will leave the sidewalk accessible until the very end. So if there's any installations we have crossing the sidewalk, we minimize the amount of sidewalk panels that would be removed and restore them immediately so that they are level at crossing and safe for residents in the evening as well. But outside of the residents on the street, we will encourage others in the neighborhood to drive around the area.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yep.
We have realized a few problems just the last week or so on our Sykes Street construction, and we're hoping maybe that I don't know. You folks might even want to touch base with the contractors there, and hopefully we can make things as easy as possible. I know there will be challenges. Patience will be required. It's a big project, and there's going to be some difficulties.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, you know, no one, I guess a lot of people don't want construction on their street in the summer. However, it is how it is that way, and unfortunately, that needs to get done. We're responsible to ensure our infrastructure is kept upgraded and up to date, so that this is what we're doing a planned renewal. And why that's important is that the municipality has identified deficiencies in the infrastructure and early enough that we can go in there and fix them before they actually fail. And when they fail, there is no plan. The plan is everything is just done reactively. And that's when, to me, when the disruption becomes the most to everybody. So it's better to plan ahead. And that's what we're doing here. We're planning ahead. We're going to be able to write a contract so the contractor can work with our residents in a timely manner, but also safe, and get his work done or their work done at the same time. And so obviously we will learn from other experiences in the area. We'll take that advice for sure. There is one thing I wanted to add. The construction that's happening currently at 186 Cook Street. Right now, to my knowledge, a majority of that work will be completed by the time this job starts. So there won't be that extra traffic, construction traffic happening at the same time as Cook Street. And I think that coordination is going to be really important as well. So that was one question. I think you had two more.
I do, Vic, but I will digress. If someone else wants to jump in here with a question, I can hold mine off for a few minutes if someone else has a question to bring forward.
Thanks very much for the presentation. Very, very interesting, and Harvey, for your questions. If I may, just to drop in, and the question that I had for you was the potential impact of this project on the construction going on for people care for that complex. But you've answered that question, that it should not interfere with that project when it comes on stream.
Yep. That is our plan right now, and they're still early in their process, so we'll see how they progress through.
Right.
I think it might be worthwhile to touch base before we actually set a start date for the municipality to start Cook Street to ensure there's no overlap. That might be detrimental to, if anything, access to the neighborhood.
And will there be detour signs and to send traffic off of Cook from a far enough distance?
Yeah, and again, we will discuss with your staff what best routes we want to make as the detour routes, because some streets are not really intended to handle the extra traffic. Whether some things I'll look at is, if there's parking allowed on both sides of the street and the street's narrow and we're going to have all this extra traffic, it sometimes doesn't become as safe for the residents on those side streets. So we need to pick the right streets for that. Sykes, I hope, is done by then. But generally in this area, we will for sure direct traffic around the work. The other thing that's important is that because we have water main repair work at 5 intersections, essentially, each intersection will require some closures as well. And so we're going to need to think ahead and divert traffic ahead of these blocks to ensure they're not coming through. Now, the residents will be able to get to their homes in those cases because the work is being concentrated at the intersection. So it's just that access will be only available from one end during that work. And so there's a lot of parts to this project. You know, I know Chris talked about this transmission water main. This is a big water main. It's powerful. It's made of a material that's very sensitive, and it's really important that the work is done well, it's done safely, and our operations staff will be there. I assure you will be there looking over this job very carefully, because any impact to that could cause some negative impacts to the neighborhood. So it's critical we do this thing right.
Yes, thank you. And we all know there's only 2 seasons here in Canada, winter and construction. So the neighbors have to put up with that. I do have one more question, but Harley, back to you if you want to move with yours.
Thank you, Mayor Columbus. And actually, your question concerning the work at 186, I think Vic has explained that. There shouldn't be any conflict with what's been going on there. That was my second question. My third question, I'd just like a little more information concerning the sidewalk, the new sidewalk. You mentioned it would likely be just on the one side, on the west side of the street. Now, when the long-term care home is constructed, and perhaps in the future, if we end up getting a sizable retirement home on that property too, there is going to be a lot of pedestrian traffic on that sidewalk. And can you just describe the sidewalk a little more fully? Because as I say, I think there are going to be a lot of people walking on that particular sidewalk. The common width of a sidewalk is, I think, 1.5 meters. Are we going to be able to widen that sidewalk and perhaps to accommodate more pedestrian traffic? Thank you.
Sorry, I just got hello.
We
Hello.
can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Somebody just pulled me out of there. Somebody doesn't like me. We were talking about the sidewalk. So really good point. You know, even though the AODA says the minimum sidewalk width is 1.5 meters, that's a guideline, no less. However, in some applications, sometimes it warrants going a little bit wider, you know, maybe 1.8 meters or 2 meters. And so we can discuss that with staff, whether that's a good opportunity to do that. I could tell you that with having the wide boulevard there is really a benefit on this street, because there's opportunity to have some snow storage, both from the sidewalk and the road. And so with that, the sidewalk will be separated from the road. It won't be against it. Whereas on the east side of the road, if we do the sidewalk through there, it would be up against the curb. And I could tell you, when I went viewing the site a few times, I noticed that some people, and a lot of people these days, have pickup trucks. And in one particular driveway, the pickup truck, the back of it extended close to the back of the curb where there is no sidewalk currently. So if you just visualize putting a sidewalk there, that car will not be able to park in that driveway anymore. And that's pretty significant, especially when you have limited spaces to park in general. Now, 186 is required to provide on-site parking for their residents and also their guests. But, you know, sometimes people just use the street as well. So that's why it's really important, I think, that we look to maximize the parking on a street, and we'll do that. But as far as your question about sidewalk goes, I think the west side is the side that makes sense. It does have sidewalk on either side of the block, which connects it. And if it warrants going a little bit wider, we can do that. And then just one last point about 186. The advantage of the 186 block is that they do have access off of Thompson Street and Lombard Street, not just Cook Street. And so that's a large advantage. If there were some you know, issues and delays in their work, it's possible we can coordinate with them to utilize one of the other access points. Which they have the advantage of doing.
Thank you for that.
Yep. That was only your second, Councillor. I think you had 3.
You know, again, I was going to ask basically the same question Mayor Compass asked about coordination with the construction going on at 186 Cook. But it sounds like if everything falls into place as is hoped, there shouldn't be any disruption from the Cook Street underground work with the work that's going on at the new LTC site.
Yeah, and I'm just going to let you know that we've had some meetings already with the 180 Cook owners and engineers, and it's been a really good, productive relationship in sharing design work, ensuring that what they need off of Cook Street, we can provide with some of our work. And just site coordination, I don't see it being a problem. I think everybody wants to do the best, get their things done, but still work cooperatively as well. So, and I'm sure that will continue.
Would that be back to me?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Just too quick, and just for my further education, if you don't mind, I'm very interested in the term you used. The road appears to be narrower,
Yes.
and this would be a traffic calming feature. Can you elaborate for me on that, please?
Okay, so essentially, I'm just going to give you a bit of history on traffic calming. Back long ago, back in the Netherlands, there was a street where a lot of people were driving quickly, and the residents just were fed up with it. So they literally went out there and started breaking sections of the road. So it forced the cars to essentially drive and meander from side to side versus straight. And that's kind of it's called chicaning almost. And it sort of developed from that. It's really about getting the driver's behavior changed so you're focusing your attention on your immediate area. So if I had a street that was wide and long, most people would just look down the road and drive straight and go fast. But if you start putting these, call them obstructions or other features along that street, you are now forced to look at your sides and be more aware of what's happening around you rather than looking down the street. And essentially a pavement marking, it's been proven that narrower roads force people to drive slower. And so if there are no cars parked on the street, then your road is essentially wide, right? It's wide open, there's no cars parked, and you're going to see people drive faster. If you put a pavement marking on the street or you put parked cars on the street, it narrows the road, and now you have to be a little bit more careful because somebody could walk out behind the car or you have other cars opposing you, and it's just human nature to drive a little bit slower. The pavement markings provide that opportunity to narrow the road, and it's really simple to do. It may not be as effective as a physical structure on the road, like a narrow curb or something. However, at least it gives you less space to drive. And when you're opposing vehicles, you will tend to drive narrower because these lanes will be more narrow than they would be as they are today. So it should be a positive effect on that. The only negative thing to pavement markings, just in general for municipalities, is just the long-term maintenance. It's something you need to freshen up potentially every year. And is it something that the municipality wants to get into? It could be that it might be so effective that other areas might start to ask for similar things, and it may warrant it. But then you should go through a warranting process for that. But here's an opportunity, I think, where we're reconstructing the road. We're not retrofitting anything. We're reconstructing it. We have an opportunity to test it on a base asphalt, which is going to be covered. So for the 1 year, test it. If it seems to work, you have the option of putting it down as a permanent feature. If not, it would go back as it is today. And you know, it's free to try, and I think pretty much, and I think it's worthwhile. So basically, what we're trying to do is just change drivers' behavior, and by doing that, we're narrowing the roadway.
Very interesting. It may be able to be used in other areas of the community that is experiencing speeding drive, and the drivers that are not paying attention as much as they should.
And I'm just going to add one more thing to that. If you have parking allowed on two sides of the street, and half of them park on one side and half park on the other, then there is still opportunity to drive a little bit faster. But if you force all those cars on one side, now you've basically taken up that whole side of the street, which forces that entire other two lanes to be narrower. So it's more of a permanent feature that way. Some of the things to consider, though, if there are residents on the east side and parking is on the west side, they would have to cross over to the west side to park versus parking in front of their homes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an important factor for some people.
Yeah. Thank you. And if I may, I do have one more quick one. Again,
Sure.
I'm just wondering with the troubles or the concern we have with the stormwater infiltration into the system. Was there any evidence of that along that stretch where the reconstruction will happen? And if so, will they be encouraged to divert their stormwater?
So are you talking about the individual residents?
I'm talking about the individual residents and anything else. Well, we know we have the church on the end there, I would imagine there that that's taken care of.
Yeah. Okay. So that I can maybe Rachel can contribute here as well. But I know with the church, there's a lot of water that seems to be just pouring towards the road. Obviously, the issue here is that it's a hard surface, and so water's not going into the ground; it's just draining across the parking lot towards the road. So we're looking at in our design to make sure we capture that water nearby, so it doesn't travel farther than it has to. And as far as 186 goes, they are required to ensure that their water is collected on their site before it's released to the road. And so with those changes, I think you'll see a difference. As far as asking people to change their workings, I guess, on private property is more difficult to do, but our storm sewer is now going to be more than twice the size that it is now in some sections. So we're adding a significant amount of capacity that should alleviate any of the problems that might be there today.
Except for the processing of that of stormwater, that's what we're trying to get away from as well.
So right. Vic, I can just jump in for a sec because I feel like there's two different conversations going on. So the municipality is currently dealing with inflow and infiltration to our sanitary sewer, and I think that's what Mayor Compton referred to. And so Vic, correct me if I'm wrong, but nothing has been identified on this project that connects storm water that connects directly into our sanitary sewer. Right. However, from those CCTV videos that were shown during the presentation, you could see that the sewer itself is allowing for some infiltration to occur, so that will be corrected, and those joints will be better fitted so that we won't be experiencing that. But this isn't necessarily a spot where there is any significant amounts identified. To the individual residents, most of those connections occur on private property to their services, so they aren't actually really picked up through this process, but as part of that inflow and infiltration work that we are doing, we will be looking at this area, or potentially this area was already previously looked at, but we'll be working with those residents to make sure separately with that inflow and infiltration strategy that the on-property work is done. But I don't think there's any work within our right-of-way that has been identified to this point. But if it is identified during construction, we'll make sure that it gets reconnected to the storm sewer instead of the sanitary sewer.
Yeah, that's true. So we have not seen any violation, I guess, of a storm cross connection into the sanitary sewer, and that's based on just looking at those videos. But those offset joints that we showed clearly will allow for infiltration to happen, and that ends up in your plant, and you're treating more water than you have to. I think it's also important that anything that we do is within this right of way. So all the services that we're going to renew for water and sanitary will be to the property line. You know, anything that's on private property is a private issue, but there are a number of residents who sometimes take the opportunity when we're upgrading the street to consider doing their part as well. So if they choose to hire somebody, and sometimes a number of neighbors will get together to get the better price and see if a contractor can come in and do their private sections, then we'll do our best to coordinate the timing of that so that we don't need to restore the area more than once. You know, they would restore their half, we'd do ours, but we don't want them having to restore something that was just done by the municipality. So that option's always available, and some people take advantage of that.
Sure. Thank you for your answers, and thank you, Tori,
Yep.
for that explanation. Appreciate it.
No problem.
So can I just ask either Madison or Rachel if anything came through via the chat?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay. I guess we'll ask one last time if there are any other questions. And if not, I think we can close the presentation. I think we do want to encourage people to hopefully have a listen to this, and some of the questions were great. Thank you very much. It's given us some things to think about before we finalize the design. And we would appreciate anything by the 3rd of September so that we can continue with our completion of the work. I want to also thank Tori and Chris for participating with us. I appreciate that.
Thanks, everyone, and have a great evening. Thanks for attending, and we look forward to any additional questions that may come through.
Thanks.
Thanks again for the presentation. Bye, everyone.
Bye.